Hi readers! Don't forget to download your free copy of the 2022 Spring Reading Guide. We've selected the best new releases this season and organized them into categories in the guide so you can head straight to your favorite section if you prefer. We also have one category that's dedicated to the minimalist reader, and our minimalist reads list has a handful of books that we highly recommend if you're only planning to pick up a few reads this spring. In the guide, you'll also find some fun recipes, things to do at home, and tips to improve your reading life. So download your free guide and see the books that made the list over at bibliolifestyle.com. That's your free copy of the 2022 Spring Reading Guide that you can download right now over at bibliolifestyle.com. I've also included a link in the show notes so you can sign up there. Happy spring reading! Welcome to The Reader's Couch, a podcast that brings you lively conversations with some of your favorite authors and bookish personalities. Over here, the couch is always booked, but I've moved some books to the side table and fluffed some cushions so I can welcome a guest or two to come lounge with us. Today on the couch, we have Brendan Slocumb, and he's here to talk to me about his debut novel, The Violin Conspiracy. A novel about a black classical musician as he tries to find his stolen violin on the eve of the most prestigious musical competition in the world. Stay tuned. Hi readers, welcome again to The Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and here on the couch with me is Brendan Slocumb, and he's here to talk to me about his debut novel, The Violin Conspiracy. Hey Brendan, welcome to The Reader's Couch.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Yay, I'm thrilled to have you here. So your debut novel, The Violin Conspiracy, it's now out there in the world. It was also selected as a Good Morning America Book Club selection. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? How excited are you?
Wow, just 1 to 10, huh? I was going to say 15, but I'll have to say a 10.
You have to say a 10. Sounds like 100 to me.
More like 100,000. It's an incredible feeling.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm so excited you could carve out some time for us here on the show. I really want readers to hear from you. Tell us about The Violin Conspiracy and what can readers expect when they pick up your novel?
Oh, absolutely. Well, The Violin Conspiracy is a story of Ray, who discovers that his old family fiddle is actually a priceless Stradivarius. And this discovery catapults him into superstardom in the world of classical music. And right before the Tchaikovsky competition, you can compare it to the Olympics of classical music. His instrument is stolen. Was it his family who thinks that he should just sell the instrument, or was it the Marx family who are descendants of the slave owner that used to own Ray's great-great-grandfather, who say that he actually stole the violin from them? It could be anyone. Will he get it back? Will he compete? Have to read it to find out.
Have to read it to find out. Absolutely. So I'm very curious. I mean, I was fortunate. I received an early copy late last year. So I had the pleasure to read this over my holiday break. And I just remember thinking to myself, wow, this is amazing. You know, where did this idea for a violin conspiracy come from? So then, of course, I did some digging. I'm like, okay, who's this man? Who's this author? And I realized, you know, you have a background in music education. You also served as a music teacher for many, many, many years. But I still want to know, outside of your musical background, which I'm sure informs a lot of the novel, but outside of your background, I mean, what made you decide, I want to write this story, I'm going to put pen to paper and tell this story of Ray and his family?
That is a great question. Really, aside from my background, it was 2020, and no one will ever forget 2020. So many crazy things happened in 2020. You know, not just the pandemic sweeping across the world, but also the events that took place involving George Floyd. I believe when people witnessed those events taking place, something happened in the world. And I think that pretty much signaled that the world was ready for a story like this. Stories like this I've been carrying them around for years and years and years. And I know a lot of other people just like me have as well. But I really think the events of 2020 unlocked the door so that people would be receptive to these types of stories.
Absolutely. I do think timing is so important because, there have been writers, artists, creators, just people from all different backgrounds sharing stories, creating art. But the timing, it just wasn't right. Folks weren't as receptive. But yeah, I agree. We will never forget 2020 for sure. But I want to get into Ray because the premise of the story kind of really, it surrounds the whole idea of this ransom note for his violin prior to him performing to, as you mentioned, the Olympics of a classical musical performer. However, the novel also goes back in time. We get flashbacks to Ray's high school years. And this was set in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he had to deal with racism there. It also even flashes to when he went to college, which he received a full scholarship to attend college. And, he was experiencing, again, just racism in school and just everything surrounding his ambitions as well. I mean, a Black man in a classical musical world. I'm not saying it's not heard of. Of course it is, but it's just not as common. I mean, do you think that also contributes to the racism in general? It's just his selected, the field he chose to pursue. I mean, what were your thoughts on just, placing Ray, this Black boy turned Black man, in this predominantly white space?
I think that is a fantastic question. And a lot of the discrimination that Ray faces, it's really interesting because I think, well, sometimes it's just blatant racism and, people just don't like him because of the color of his skin. And a lot of the other discrimination that he experiences is strictly because people don't think that he's capable just because of the way that he looks. Well, Black people don't do this. Well, classical music, no. You should be playing jazz or hip hop or, just rap or something. This is not for you. You're not good at this. And he hasn't played a note, and people will make those judgments against people like me and like Ray. So it was actually pretty easy to write because, unfortunately, I have experienced things like that quite often. So when you have someone who you don't expect to do well, to me, that's very sad. Those expectations, you have very low expectations for people, and it's not really fair. And unfortunately, people do it. But, hopefully this book will raise awareness and people will think twice about prejudging someone.
Right, absolutely. So there's, again, the thrilling aspect of will he get his violin? There's, conversations on racism like we just discussed. But I also kind of latched on to the hints in the story that surround family. Because Ray's grandmother, I latched onto her because, she was really supporting his musical aspirations. She was the one who gave him her grandfather's violin. And, he's also dealing with his mom, who's kind of nagging him to get a real job. You know what I mean? So there's that struggle as well. I mean, can you talk a bit about like just familial expectations and how it kind of informed this novel? Because for me, that was a very strong point in the story as well.
Absolutely. With Ray's grandmother, Grandma Nora, she was actually modeled after my own grandma, Nora. And I did my best to get the descriptions down as accurately as possible, even down to the pink and green hair rollers that she would wear and the and the bluing in her hair that I just recently began to understand what it is. I just thought she had blue hair. I didn't get that. But she saw in Ray what he did not see in himself. And she also saw what his mom didn't see. And I don't think that it wasn't really his mom's fault that she didn't get it. She just didn't get it. Classical music was not something that she grew up with or even enjoyed or even, thought about pursuing in any way, shape, or form. So when Ray does, she just doesn't get it. And a lot of people don't. And it's unfortunately very common. Same with me. When I was playing violin, people would look at me like, why are you doing that? That's for girls. That's for white people. Why are you doing that? You're not going to be able to do that. And it takes a toll on you when you hear that constantly and people don't understand what it is you're doing and they encourage you to do something else because in their own way, they want you to be successful, just not doing what it is that you really want to do. So I really wanted the familial aspect to be genuine. And it really is, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who do support their kids in whatever it is that they do, even if they don't get it, which is fantastic. But, sometimes people just don't understand things. And because they don't understand things, they really don't know how to best support.
Absolutely. And again, I latched onto his grandmother. I'm like, it reminded me of my own grandmother. So.
Your grandmother must have been really sweet.
She was, and just super supportive, So that was just definitely something that resonated with me personally. So I love seeing those familial hints as well. Another thing I've noted, it's, again, I have to keep going back. One thing is, the violin's missing and there's a ransom and there's this big thing. But then now, off of the violin missing now comes into ownership. And I found this just, again, fascinating that, okay, here we are, kind of present day, so to say. And this violin has been in Ray's family for quite some time. But then now this, legal battle over ownership ensues as the family, as you mentioned, the Marx clan, who were the slave owners of Ray's family, is now claiming the violin. I found this quite interesting because, we're in a time where we are having conversations about our past or history. And it's often said, well, that's a long time ago. That has been long past. We're here. Things are different. We're trying to be better. Slavery was abolished years ago. But then in this present day scenario, history and the past way back is now being brought to the forefront to say, well, no, we're the owners of the violin. I mean, for me, that was a huge juxtaposition. I mean, was this intentional? Kind of, okay, it wasn't just enough for the violin to go missing, but now the former slave owners of this family is now claiming ownership because it's a very prized violin.
Absolutely. It was completely intentional. I wanted to raise the tension and raise the stakes for Ray. Everything that Ray goes through, it's a huge test. Everything is a test, and he is tested constantly. And what a lot of people don't necessarily realize is that being a person of color, a Black person in this field, everything you have to go through, what Ray was going through was nothing compared to what we go through regularly. And I really wanted to show his resilience. I really wanted to show that, even though he goes through situations like this and he comes across people that just do not have his best interest at heart, and they just really want, it's about greed and about being selfish. And would any of that change Ray? I really wanted to show that he was a resilient young man because of everything that he had gone through, just his perseverance, just the people that supported him, how important that support is, because it's a very real feeling. You want to just kind of, I quit. I'm just going to turn into one of these people. These people are being like this to me. So why don't I just do the same? That would be really, really, really easy to do. That'd be the easy way out.
Right. Absolutely. So we also meet other characters in the novel. I know I was really focusing on Ray there, but, he has a girlfriend who's also a violinist, Nicole. He has a somewhat mentor, I guess, second mother kind of vibe in Janice. But I'm just curious, who outside of Ray, because I can see where, you can relate a lot to Ray, but what other character in the novel you either enjoyed writing or you'd say to readers, this one's one to watch?
Oh, wow. That would be Dr. Janice Stevens. No question. No doubt at all. Dr. Janice Stevens was actually based on my violin teacher in college, Dr. Rochelle Vetter Huang. And I was going to name her Rochelle, but I was like, yeah, that might be a bit over the top. Everybody would totally know if they knew me what I was talking about. So I just I chose the name Janice because one of the teachers in the county that I grew up in playing violin, her name was Janice, and she's what I pictured Ray's teacher looking like, but she was completely based on my teacher, I love this woman dearly. She taught me every single thing that I know. She taught me how to play the violin. She taught me how to teach. She gave me confidence, much like she does Ray. She supported every single thing that I did. When I did not do well, she was honest about it. And it was not, oh, it'll be better next time. No, it was, yes, you're right. That was not the greatest performance in the world, but this is what you need to do to make it better. And I always appreciated that honesty and always appreciated that support. And anything that I could do to make her proud, I would do. And I hope that came across in the page.
Yes, yes, it most definitely did. I had like this big grin on my face
Awesome.
hearing that. Oh, wow, she was modeled after this real life supporter as well. So, yeah, I loved reading her narrative. All right. So, I want us to get into a bit about your writing life now, Brendan. You wrote The Violin Conspiracy. I know you mentioned that, 2020 informed a lot of, or it gave you that push to say, yes, it's time for this story. So I'm curious, how long did it take for you to write this novel and just kind of pull it together? And also, if you don't mind sharing just a bit about your publishing experience. Was it what you expected or not? Were there any surprises? I mean, just tell us about your journey thus far.
Absolutely. Well, in 2020 was the first time that I'd written anything major, probably for 15, 20 years. I tried writing a novel a long time ago, a science fiction novel, which is really good, but my writing is just horrible. I go back and read it and I cringe. I'm like, oh, what was I thinking? But the story is good. So one of these days I'm going to go back and finish that. 2020, I was put on a very strict writing schedule. I finished the book in 2.5 months because during COVID, you had nothing to do except eat or write. So I was getting fat. So I was like, yeah, I need to write more. And I'm going along, and my agent, who I'd sent a submission to, was like, yeah, okay, the subject matter is not great, but your voice is pretty good. So why don't you try writing something that you know? I was like, I know music, so I'm going to try this. I would write every day for about 2.5 hours. I tried to get in at least 2,500, 3,000 words a day. And I just did that every day, which was actually easy to do. Being a violinist, I'm accustomed to practicing for long amounts of time. And, I would just do that daily, and it wasn't a big deal. And when the novel was finished, I had no expectations. I just wanted someone to like the story. That was my expectation. That was it. And when I got the call, my agent asked me if I would accept a 2-book deal. I'm like, yeah, why would I not?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. And which book? What other book am I going to write? Well, you have to write another one. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I can do that. And I got that call in January, and I think I did a flip. It was fantastic. And just this process going through with the Anchor Books crew they're phenomenal. They're absolutely phenomenal. My expectations for publishing and everything, it was on the job training. I'm learning as we go. You've got to do this. You've got to go through the edits. You've got to go through the revisions. You've got to make decisions about basically every single thing. And, I'm very fortunate to have had a fantastic team to walk me through everything with the first book. So for the second one, I am totally prepared. I am a pro. I know everything that is expected of me, and it is going to be done and done in a timely manner. No, but it's really been a fantastic journey, and I've learned so much. You have no idea what goes on behind the scenes. And like I said, I have a terrific team at Anchor Books.
That's amazing. So happy to hear it. Now, seeing that, you're used to practicing for long periods of time to your violin, so that kind of translated to you just, sitting there getting it done with your writing. But what would you say is the most challenging part of your creative process thus far?
Wow, that's a good question. For me, I think it would be narrowing down of characters. There in Violin Conspiracy, I actually had to cut maybe 4 or 5 characters that were just, to me, they were just vivid and they jumped off the page, and they were awesome characters. But, in the editing process, it was like, well, this person doesn't really add too much to the story. Are they interesting? Oh, yeah, they're really interesting. Some great dialogue going on here, but they don't add too much to the story. And just having to whittle down, instead of 15 characters, I just would narrow it down to less than half of that. But that's always a fight. It's always a fight between my agent and I. No, I really want to keep this person in. They're fun. Well, yeah, they are fun, but it does nothing for the story. Okay, you're right. I'll save that character and I'll use him in another book or something. And there's one that I'm definitely doing that for because he was just too good of a character to lose completely. But yeah, that's one of the most difficult things that I've had to do is narrow down the characters.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned that, you were doing this sci-fi thing 15 years ago, and now, jump to present day, the Violin conspiracy is here. If you could maybe go back to that person 15 years ago writing that sci-fi novel, or just a younger writing version of yourself, even further back, if you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. If I could tell my younger self, I would say read more. Definitely read more and do a lot more editing and take people's constructive criticism. Don't take it personally. Just take it for what it is. It's constructive. It's there to help you. And yeah, I guess I was so arrogant thinking, wow, this story is great. I don't need anyone's input on this. It's fantastic, which I still think it's a good story. But it would have gone over a lot better had I taken advice from people instead of taking it so personally. It's not that they were trying to discourage me. They was really just trying to help me. And that's one thing that a lot of people, regardless of what your profession is, people should really learn to not take things so personally. Not everything is personal. Not everything is meant to hurt you. There are things that people say that are maybe hurtful that will help you. So that is a great piece of advice I would give to my younger self. Just take the advice, listen to it.
Take the advice, listen to it. Sounds pretty solid to me. Okay, so you kind of alluded to this. This was a 2-book deal for you. I do see online where you're working on your second novel, so it's not really like me prying, but I am still going to pry, about your other writing projects. I mean, are we getting another book? Can you tell us what maybe it would be about? Seeing that character who got caught from the Violin conspiracy might be making an appearance. I mean, what can you tell us, Brendan?
Well, I will say that the character that got cut from the Violin conspiracy is probably going to be in book 3. But before we get to book 3, book 2 is I just finished the manuscript and it's actually being edited right now. And I'm working on revisions this week. It is a fantastic story and I absolutely love it. And I hope people love it as well. It's about a musicologist and a computer linguist who discover that the world's most famous composer, he's an American composer. He is synonymous with Beethoven and Mozart and Brahms, and he's bigger than all of them. His 150th anniversary is coming up, and a worldwide celebration is about to take place celebrating his music. But the musicologist and the computer linguist discover that his most famous works, actually all of his works potentially, were not written by him, but by a Black woman, and he appropriated her music. And to add to that, the woman would be considered what we consider today living with autism. So there is an aspect of people living with autism that I was really happy to write about. And there's action and there's suspense and there's humor and there's a little bit of family stuff in there as well. It's a really good story and I'm really excited for people to read it.
I'm excited. Like I'm grinning. I'm like, okay, I'm here for this one.
Okay, after this one comes out, you got to ask me about books 3 and 4. You're gonna pass out.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we are making it a date. This has to happen.
Done and done.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay, let's get into your reading life real quick. I know we're here to talk about the Violin conspiracy, and I've been having a grand time, but I know my readers would kill me if I didn't ask you. What are you reading, Brendan? I know you said earlier, read more, but I'm curious. What are you reading now? What are you looking forward to reading? Just tell us what's on your shelf.
I literally just finished A Little Devil in America by Hanif Abdurraqib, which was, it was one of my favorite books. It was fantastic. If you're into pop culture and Black culture and music and civil rights and TV and movies, everything you thought you knew, it turns it on its head. And one of my absolute favorite sections in the book. Well, first, I love the way he set it up as a bunch of essays, and it is just, I mean, it's phenomenal. And there's one section about Mary Clayton who sang with the Rolling Stones on one of their songs, "Give Me Shelter." I had no idea who this woman was. I didn't even know the song. And immediately after I finished this section, I had to go and Google this woman and look it up, and it just made everything more vivid as I was listening to it. Just incredible. I'm also into classics. I'm rereading the Epic of Gilgamesh. Don't ask me why, because I'm a teenage boy at heart and I just like that stuff. And on my to be read list is Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead.
Yes, that's amazing. I love that you reread books though, because that's an ongoing debate in the community. Do we reread the books we've read and loved? Are there too many books out there in the world to read? So I'm happy you're a rereader
You
because I
know,
am too.
the funny thing about that is I've always thought this, if you love something, why do you only have to read it once? Why can't you get the same enjoyment reading it several times? I am a real huge crime mystery buff, and Agatha Christie is one of my idols, and I am rereading Death on the Nile right now.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. Okay, we also need to have future conversations on rereading books.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right, great. Fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, so in addition to just loving books and reading and hearing from more authors, we love local indie bookstores. We really believe they're the biggest cornerstones in our communities, especially on a small local level. So share with our listeners just some of your favorite bookstores. It could be childhood favorites, your local indie right now, maybe some you've discovered on your travels. Just share some of the indie love.
I am going to speak on one particular bookstore. That's my favorite bookstore that once I go back to Michigan, I will be definitely stopping in and probably hanging out. It's called Source Booksellers in Detroit. And this is my favorite bookstore because they specialize in nonfiction, and they have what they call a wild side section where they will have specific fiction books. And just the way that they choose their fiction books, I think it's a great concept, one. And two, they actually chose my book as one of the wild side picks. So I was like, oh, I like this story. This is great. And it's just, I think it's a great, really nice people. They're really involved in the community, and they offer a lot of programs for people to come in, people that don't necessarily enjoy reading regularly. I think there's something for everyone at this bookstore.
That's amazing. Love it. Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so kind of pulling things back together and just coming back to the Violin conspiracy. Again, you did your job. You wrote the book. It's out there in the world. People are reading about it, talking about it. Just, we're doing all the things right now. But as an author, I mean, what reactions are you hoping for maybe, or just some thoughts or conversations you're hoping reading the Violin conspiracy will start? I mean, what are you just hoping for in general?
I really want just people to enjoy the story. That's the big thing. I just want it to bring happiness and joy to someone. And I also would love it if a discussion were started. Well, why aren't there very many Black people in classical music? The statistic is 1.8% of classical musicians who work in professional orchestras, 1.8%. Why is that? Is it because we're incapable? Is it because we just don't have the opportunity? What is the reason behind that? We have several major orchestras in the United States alone, and that number to me is staggering. So I really want to bring awareness to what Black people have to go through in the classical music world. We're just as capable as everyone else. We can play just as well. I can play all the excerpts. I played the major solos. Why aren't there more of us? And that would be a discussion that I would really like for people to start. Also, just people's perception of things. Just because your perception is different than my perception does not mean that my perception is wrong. And I think sometimes people equate different with wrong. And I'm hoping that reading this book will get people to see there are different ways of looking at things. There are different experiences that people go through. It's not one size fits all.
Absolutely. It's definitely not one size fits all. Brendan, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me. I had so much fun just talking the Violin conspiracy, reading, writing, bookstores, just everything. It was a pleasure.
My absolute pleasure, Victoria. I loved every second of it, and I'm going to hold you to that return appearance.
Yes, it is gonna happen. I promise.
Winner.
Love it. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Reader's Couch. You can find out more about the show and submit your questions for our guest by visiting our website, thereaderscouch.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Couch Is Booked. If you like the show, please subscribe, share, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Next week, I'll be back with new guest more books, and some fun games we can play. But until then, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.